In this tutorial, we'll be looking at how to make our app have dark and light mode. This is like a trend now, and everyone should have it because, especially because of eye comfortability. So that's what we'll be looking at, and we'll be using MUI, that is Material UI Design. Um, Here is it. This is the documentation. This is what we'll be using for this tutorial. So you possibly know of the color scheme. Let me get that color scheme that is given to us here. So you can actually use this, but I have some other flexibility I get from MUI, and so I recommend it. So I'll be teaching you how to use MUI, that is Material UI Design. It's for React mostly. I don't think it's used for other JavaScript libraries. Well, we'll be doing React after all. I'm a React engineer, so all right. So let me go back to the installation. We'll begin by installing it. So I'll just open a new tab here, and here's the installation. It's just MUI.com in case you are looking for the website. It's MUI.com. I'll leave a link to the description in the description down there. So MUI.com, and you can navigate to wherever you want. We are currently at the installation page, and what you need is this first installation. So you click on it, you paste it in your terminal, and you hit enter. By the way, this is an empty React project. I have already cleared out the data here. I assume that anybody watching this isn't new to React, so in the index.css, I've cleared out the CSS. The app.js is just having just this line of text, and then the app.css is clear so that we don't have any CSS interfering. I left the font family here so that we can have a nice looking font up here. So this is it, and this is just what we have. I'll be showing you how to use MUI for this in a bit. So the installation is done. Now that the installation is done, we can close this off. Our server is running, so we wouldn't need the terminal anytime soon. Maybe this is not too much zoom. Okay, this should be fine. Now, in order for us to do this, we are provided with we are provided with a theme by MUI, and in that theme you're able to change a lot of things like colors, like font, basically anything you need in for you to be able to have a beautifully designed project. So that is what we are going to be employing for this tutorial. And once you navigate to the dark mode section, which is here, this is the dark mode section under customization, you have everything you need. I'll be making it a bit simpler for you so that you might not need to read all the documentation. So the first thing we need to do here is to import this first line, and that is the theme provider and create theme. This uses the React context hook under the hood. So in case you're new to React context, you might not really need to know it for you to be able to follow up in this tutorial, but I'm just telling you so that you know how some of these things are built. We wouldn't be needing the CSS baseline. We'll need it for something else, but not for this tutorial. Then the next thing we would need is this, and that is the palette. Now the palette is where the whole colors can be manipulated. So it makes sense that the mode is also inside of that, right? So we'll just copy this. Basically what we are doing here is like we are creating a context hook, but for this dark mode. Just think about it that way. So you just copy this, paste it inside of the function, because in a moment we'll need it that way. Sorry, I didn't copy this properly. So we'll copy this and paste it here. So it's pasted outside here. It is done outside here, but we'll be doing it inside of our own function here. Yeah, and I would like to change this to app theme because in a moment we'll be using it to switch between dark and light mode. So you don't need to know how these things are made. You just need to know how to use them in your project. Maybe with time you get to know how they are made. So you don't stress yourself trying to find out how each of these things are made. Just know how to use them in your project. if you want to understand more on how to do this customization, you just need to come back to this palette here and check how it is done. You can also check out the theme in here, but we're focusing on the dark mode, so let's not get distracted. Then the next thing we want to do is to wrap our project inside of the theme provider. So everything that falls now inside of this theme provider would have whatsoever that is passed in from this create theme that we just did here. So as usual, we'll copy this line, copy the line, and we'll put it before the opening h1 tag here, and then copy the closing tag. We'll copy it and put it at the end of the h1 tag here. Okay, let's get rid of this. All right, and then we'll need to wrap everything inside of. All right, so that should be good. What are we missing? Are we missing anything? Dark mode theme. Okay, I have a closing tag here which was automatically added for me, so that fixes it. Then for the theme here, make sure you are passing the app theme instead of the dark mode. This is just a naming convention. It's just for us to understand that we are not only focused on the dark mode, but we'll be switching between the light and dark mode in a bit. So now that we've done this doesn't automatically apply the dark mode for us. You save it, you come back to your project here, you still have a blank page here. Now the reason is it doesn't apply this theme on top of the body. It applies it on top of components that is given to us by MUI. And one of the components that we use is the paper component. The paper component has like a general background for everything. You can also change components using that one paper background. It is also similar to the box component, but we'll focus on the paper component for this project or for this tutorial. So if you navigate here's the paper component. You can find it under the surfaces section here inside the component. So on your own you can check that out. So all you just need is to put in the paper and you have something like this, both for light and dark mode, so whatsoever one you choose. So that's what we are going to be doing. So the paper, that's what we want to do here. We want to wrap the h1 inside of the paper component. So paper, please make sure it is capital letter. If it's not capital letter, it's going to not work as you want. So hit enter and it is automatically imported for us on top of here. So normally you have to import it on top of here before using it inside of our project. And now we'll move the h1 inside of the paper component and then fix that formatting and save it. Now as soon as you save it, we'll come back to our project. We now have the dark mode being applied under here, but we need to cover the whole page. So the first thing we need to do is to get rid of the margin and the padding that comes with the browser by default. So for us to do that, we do an asterisk, open and close curly brackets, and set margin to 0 and padding to 0. These are default stylings. Usually we do them at the beginning of our project, but it's fine so that we get to know how everything is working inside of the project. So once you save it, it should take it to the edge. Yes. Now the next thing is we want it to cover the whole page from top to bottom. So we come in here and apply. Now before we even do that, we want to make sure that we get rid of the elevation or the shadow. Now to quickly understand what I'm talking about, let's change this mode back to light and save it. Now you notice that there is some sort of line under of here. Now that line is a shadow. We want to get rid of the shadow. So for us to do that, we use a property or an attribute called elevation, and we set it to 0. As soon as you set it to 0, it should get rid of this line here. So we save it and the line is gone. So the paper component is still there, but the line is gone because we've set the elevation to 0. Now let's get back to our dark mode here and set it to dark, save it, and we're back to our dark mode. Now for us to be able to get the whole page covered with the dark mode, we need to stretch it out, and so we put in the styling. For you to style in MUI, material UI design for React, you need to use the SX attribute. So SX, and make sure the curly brackets are 2 so that you don't get an error. If it is just 1, the styles will be applied, and of course I'm getting an error already in my editor. So you add in the second one, and then we put in the height of 100 view height. That's what we want to do. So we want it to cover everything we are seeing. You save that, it covers everything you are looking at. Now, one more thing. If you look at the edges, if you notice that, I don't know if you notice that, at the edges of this browser, there is some sort of white edges at that corner. It is because by default, this has some sort of border radius. So we want to get rid of the border radius, and for us to get rid of border radius, we need to add another property here called square. Make it a square, and all the white edges will be removed. So you save that, and it is gone. So we now have a full page that is completely dark. Now this is how you use the dark mode all over your project. So for every page you want to render, you just need to make sure that it is covered with the paper component. As soon as it's covered with the paper component, it now starts to reapply or change the colors on the site, and that is what you have here. For either dark or light mode, the color palette changes automatically for you. So for example, for typography, which is the text, it changes back to white because the background is already dark. And if it is a light background, then it changes back, the typography changes back to black like this for the primary, for the secondary, and for the disabled. So if you just take your time to read it up, you'll be able to find out the differences between these things. So generally, we've been able to apply dark mode to our project, but here's the thing. Sometimes we want to switch between light and dark mode. So how do we do this? So to do this, it's very simple. We just need to be able to toggle between the light and the dark mode. So for us to do this, we need to use the useState hook. So come up here and then set some sort of state here. So useState, we make sure that we import it here. So mine is automatically imported for me, and then we open this up here and put in mode as the variable. So mode, that's the variable there, and then we set it to, by default, let's set it to false, and I want to make this mode a small alphabet. Okay, mode. Now what we want to do here is to set the mode inside of the palette depending on the state of the mode out here. So if the mode is true, we want it to be equal to dark. Instead of that, or else, we want it to be equal to light. So light. The next thing we want to do is to add a switch. Like, we want to be able to switch it on or off. So currently, what it will be showing us is a light background here. You see, because we now have the mode to be false, and if we change the mode here to be true, it changes back to false. Sorry, it changes back to dark. But as usual, I want to start with false, and then let's get a switch. We should have a switch somewhere here. MUI gives us a switch, so you just copy the switch here. I'll make a few changes inside of our project, so we'll paste it here, and then of course make sure you are importing the switch on top of here. The switch is automatically imported for me up here, and then for the checked, we want to use the mode as the base to check if it should be true or false. So we'll put in the mode here, and then let's create a function for this handle change up here. So const handle change equal to, it's going to be an arrow function. So we open and close curly brace. Then we're saying that if mode is true, then set mode to false. Else, this is just a toggle. Else, set mode to true. And that is it. So now that we've done this, let's save and see what we've done. Go back to our project here. Now we have the switch, and we can switch between the light and dark mode. As soon as you switch, you see how it changes flawlessly between light and dark mode. So this is that's how we switch, and it's making sense, right? Now, but there's one more thing, and this is why MUI is actually perfect for the project. Sometimes you want to use the person's or the client's or maybe the user's system specification. So by default, many people's system are in dark mode. So how do you make sure that you give them exactly what they want so that they don't have to switch between the light and dark mode every time? They want to use what they are comfortable with. Now, that is something that is very unique, and we can get that all from MUI. So if you scroll down to like the bottom of the page here, that is, we are still in the dark mode page. There is what we call the use query hook here that helps us to it helps with the dark mode, of course, but it also helps with things like sizes of our web page or sizes of device, so that we're able to determine the size of a device and then render appropriate content according to size of device. But for this project, we'll be using it for just the dark mode, light and dark mode switching. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that we import it at the top like this. So we'll copy it here and paste it here in our import. So we've imported it. Now the next thing we want to do is to copy this line and paste it at the top here. Paste at the top. Basically, the line is saying that use the preferred color scheme of the person's system. If it is dark, you set it to dark, something like that. So that's just it. Like I said, you don't need to overly understand what's going on under the hood. You just need to know how to use it in your project. As time goes by, you clearly understand how these things are used. You notice that these things are basic React. Use query is React hook. Use state is React hook. Create theme is React context. So there's really nothing extra that is going on here. All right. So now this gets whatsoever is inside of the person's system settings and puts it up for you here. So what we will do now is to copy the preferred dark mode, copy it and paste it into this place. That is the use state. So see it this way. It is checking if the user prefers the dark mode. So if it prefers the dark mode, if the user's system prefers the dark mode, then it sets the prefers dark mode to true. If the user do not prefer the dark mode, then it sets it to false. And so automatically our mode will become true or false depending on the person's system specification. Makes sense? All right. So by default now, whatsoever is the person's system specification, we get it to be used in our project. So when you save this, of course, my own system specification is dark. It automatically shows us dark here. Just to show that this is working, let's change this to false. You save it, it is showing us the light mode, and of course we can switch between, but we want to start on the person's system design or the user system specification. So that is why instead of putting false here, we put the prefers dark mode here and save it, and automatically it switches back to dark mode. As always, anytime you choose to refresh this page, it will always be in dark mode. But at the time when it was using our own values here that will set it to false, if you set this to dark and refresh the page, it goes back to light. But this is the beauty of using the person's system specification. You save it to dark, then it will always be at the person's system design. Anytime you decide to refresh it here, you can switch on and off anytime you want. And that is how to make dark mode in React using MUI. The full code is here. I will upload this code to GitHub just in case you want to get a clean code for your project. I'm sure you might prefer this to going into the documentation. But if you want to get more out of this, you need to go into the documentation and read up as much as possible. There's a lot that MUI offers us, and I've been using it for very big projects, very complex project, and it's been working perfectly. Dark mode is the in thing now, and we all want to have a share to give our users the best of experiences. So thank you for watching. Please hit the subscribe button, like this video and share to as many people as possible, especially those that will benefit from it. Please share it on social media, and I'll see you next week in another tutorial. For this tutorial, we didn't use the use context hook. If you'd like to see how to use the use context hook in this, let me know in the comment section. If I get plenty of comments and get plenty likes for this video, I'll consider doing the use context version of it. So thank you very much. I'll see you soon.